SalesCrunch. Learn more, earn more.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Quinn. I want to welcome you to Sales School today on July 6, 2000. Find prospects in a Sales 2.0 world. Quick point of housekeeping. At this moment, you guys are all on mute, so you can hear me, but I can't hear you. At the same time, I'd like to keep this interactive. Myself, as well as Melissa from SalesCrunch, will be monitoring the chat pane. So if there are any questions you have along the line, feel free to ask away, and we'll address those as we go. There'll also be Q&A at the end of today's class. So with that, we'll get right into it, and let's talk about qualifying prospects in a Sales 2.0 world. Excellent. So by way of introduction, my name is Andrew Quinn. I run sales training at HubSpot. We are an inbound marketing software company up here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I've been with the company exactly 2 years. My 2-year anniversary was yesterday. I have trained every single HubSpot salesperson here and really have focused a lot on the skills necessary to be successful in selling in a 2.0 world. We've grown our business right around 100% a year, every year. Give you a little bit about my background. I've got 25 years sales management, and sales training experience. Runs the gamut from Fortune 500 companies like Bell Atlantic, Verizon, and Microsoft to startups like HubSpot, BuyerZone, and Card Service Online. As I always like to say, everybody out there tends to have a superpower beyond just their normal professional work. So I figured I'd share that with you as well, put a little color in today's presentation. And I actually have the capacity to melt faces when I'm out playing lead guitar with my 80s hair metal cover band. So I thought I'd share a little bit of both sides, the professional as well as the fun side. So with that said, let's dive right into it. The selling environment in 2001 has changed quite a bit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, then we're going to drop into the agenda for the actual course itself. So when you think about selling in 2011, consumers have unprecedented access to purchase information. Whether you're selling B2B, B2C, it's extremely easy for your buyers to get details, specs, value points on what you offer. On top of that, it's really easy for customers to get reviews, to get opinions, to get other people's insights into what you sell. It's easy for them to get recommendations from social media. They can query their network on Facebook. They can drop questions on LinkedIn. They can use Quora. A variety of different ways in which they can attempt to get an understanding on the insights of the product that you sell or competing products to what you sell. On top of that, it's very easy for them to also get costs, to get prices, and to get deals. So the typical way that a salesperson adds value to the sales process, frankly, has been disrupted considerably. So to that end, if you think about it, buyers already know a lot going in. So prior to your sales conversation, they know a lot. They also, at this stage of the game, are really looking to the salesperson to add extra value to the deal. So the table stakes in a lot of respects are higher in that sales conversation. Because no longer is a buyer just relying on a variety of salespeople to educate them on specifications, educate them on offers, on deals. In a lot of cases, they can find that stuff up front. They're also looking on the salesperson as a way to validate the things that they've already learned. So to that end, right, there's a lot of ways for prospects to get distracted by all the different offers that are available, all the different products that are in your competing space. So looking for a salesperson in a lot of ways to help sort of cut through some of that clutter. Because while they have unprecedented access to information, it's hard for buyers to necessarily sort through it and figure out the right way to make the appropriate decision. So they do look for the salesperson to provide that ultimate reason why they should or should not buy from that specific provider. So to that end, if you think about it, this creates a very challenging environment for sales professionals. Salespeople truly need to be absolute experts on their products. They need to become trusted advisors to their buyers. That's the way you influence buyer behavior in 2011. Salespeople really need to be skilled more than anything in how to uncover a buyer's true motivation. What are their pains? What is that buyer's opportunity that they're trying to realize? What is the source of a buyer's urgency? In a lot of ways, many of us are selling products that don't necessarily have deadlines attached to them. So it's not necessarily urgent for the buyer to buy today. So we need to uncover the reasons why that urgency may be there and help that buyer see that. On top of that, there are consequences for the buyer not taking action. So it's really important that a salesperson has the ability to do that. Uncover pain, uncover opportunities of their buyer, understand that source of urgency and the consequences of the buyer not taking action. So when you think about it, those are critical skills for success in the 21st century. And probably the most important one that drives all of those different attributes is your ability to qualify as a salesperson. The more skill you have at qualifying your prospects, the easier it is to be a sales success in 2011 and beyond. So getting into our agenda, I'm going to cover a couple of very specific things. What does it mean to qualify? So we'll dig into that. We'll talk about developing your ability to ask high-impact qualifying questions. I have a particular method that I'm very fond of. I call it the Power of 3 qualifying method. So I'll spell that method out in detail for you guys. And then we'll talk about the 2 biggest mistakes that salespeople make when qualifying. And then, of course, some key takeaways, and then our question and answer. So getting right into it, what does it mean to qualify prospects? I look at it this way. I believe it's the process a sales rep follows to see if a prospect matches up to a set of predefined criteria that, when met, yield a high likelihood that the prospect's going to buy. So really what you're doing is you're trying to see, based on what that prospect's attempting to do I match up to that, and I've got a good likelihood that that prospect's going to move forward. So when you think about it, why do you qualify? The real key reason, or one of the key reasons to qualify, is to conserve resources. One of those resources is time. You don't want your salespeople spending time with people that can't buy. That happens all too often. They get sort of happy years, or they're chasing deals that are never going to close. And that wastes time in them actually connecting with buyers that could actually buy your product or service. On top of that, it conserves money. Right? You're paying a salesperson to do this work. You're sourcing leads. You're paying for these leads. You've got a cost of customer acquisition. The more effective you are at getting your salespeople to understand who the right buyer is and connect with that buyer and rule out those that can't buy, the better off you are going to be in conserving your resources in bringing in good fit companies. And on top of that, you're also conserving effort. Right? The sales process is effort. I've got to go source leads. I've got to talk to those leads. I've got to present my product to them. I've got to close them. There's a lot of time involved in doing that. There's a lot of effort involved. The better you are at qualifying, the more effort you put into those prospects that can actually buy what you sell. There's nothing worse than spending a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort on somebody that can't actually buy the product. So that ultimately increases your probability of closing business when you're better qualified. So really, when do you qualify when you think about the sales process? In my opinion, early and often. Just like breakfast, you want to get right at that qualifying process. So you're really going to do it at every stage of the sales process, from your prep work all the way through to prior to running some type of demo. So when you connect with them, when you have your initial conversation, all those elements should include qualifying opportunities to decide, is it worthwhile to keep moving forward with this prospect? Always looking for that opportunity to rule them out. There's a lot of salespeople tend to look the wrong way, which is, how can I rule this person in? And if I'm in the rule-in mode, I tend to spend too much time with people that can't buy. So it is sort of counterintuitive, but you're in a much stronger position if you figure out your rule-out criteria. So you do really need to be constantly vigilant in determining if the prospect can buy. And there's a key skill to effective qualifying. And that really comes down to being able to ask good questions. The more effective someone is at asking questions, the more effective they're going to be at qualifying. So being able to ask those questions in such a way that the prospect lowers their guard and gives honest answers is the key. And a lot of that comes down to training your people on how to have conversational questions. One of the risks is that you run into sort of an interrogation. I'm going to talk about a technique that you can employ so that salespeople actually ask the right kinds of questions in a way that is conversational with their prospect, yet yields the information you need to qualify whether or not that prospect is an active buyer. So with that, what is a high-impact question? And a high-impact question is one that gets at the root of your qualifying criteria. So one of the things I would encourage you all to consider would be very clear on your qualifying criteria. And there are a variety of different ways that you can sort of structure a qualifying criteria. At HubSpot, we use a qualifying criteria called BANT. That's an acronym. It stands for budget, authority, need, and timing. Again, that's budget, authority, need, and timing. So when you think about that, budget means, do they have the money? Can they actually spend on what I'm looking to sell them? Authority, am I talking to the person that can actually sign the order form, give me the credit card, buy my product? And the need, is the need there? Do they actually need what I'm selling? And timing, does this actually fit in the time frame they want to get at? In a lot of respects, need and timing drive urgency. The more you understand the need and timing of the prospect, the more the urgency starts to come to the top. And then obviously the more you understand their budget constraints and the authority level of the person you're talking with, you get a better understanding on whether or not you actually have the opportunity to close a deal. So ultimately, you're looking to connect with the person who has the money, can sign the deal, the need is there, and the time is now. That's one qualifying method. Another acronym that's out there, a variation on that, is called FAINT. This one comes from the Rainmaker blog. This one stands for funds. So do they have the funds? Am I dealing with the authority? Is the interest there? Is the need there in timing? So they add a little bit of a wrinkle there in talking about interest. So in speaking about all this, what I'm really driving at is you need to figure out some of those criteria that are critical as a go or no-go for your buyers. Like I said, at HubSpot, we aggressively qualify around BANT. There are a few other qualifiers we look for as well, but that's really the core. Is the money there? Are we talking to a person that can buy? Is the need prevalent? And is the timing right? You could also go with the FAINT acronym if you like that as well, or come up with your own. But the real question is, how do you figure out your qualifying criteria? So one way to consider that, I'm a big fan of this approach, is to work your way backwards. So if you think about it, you all have most likely your ideal buyer, that ideal customer. Like when we sell a customer, I can look at these 5 customers we sold. They were a perfect fit. They had everything we needed to be a great customer and successful with our product and service. So if you work backwards from that vision of that's my ideal buyer, you start backing into, so what budget level did that person have that allowed them to buy quickly? What authority level would they have to sign that deal? Was it the CEO? Was it the purchasing agent? Was it the vice president of marketing? Was it the IT, the CIO? Who is it? What types of things did they need to accomplish that really lined up with what I sold? And was it a perfect fit about all the things that I thought my product could match up with? How urgent was their need to move forward on that? There could be other criteria such as systems constraints. They need to have X, Y, and Z in place in order for my product to work. It could be size of organization. It needs to be of X number of employees to work. If you're selling software as service, it may be their website needs at least 10,000 visitors a month coming to it in order to make our product worthwhile for them. So a key thing is to work backwards. Find that ideal buyer profile, that buyer persona, and work backwards into the qualifying criteria you need your salespeople to test for. So how do you frame those high-impact questions effectively? So one of the ways to do that is in the context of a strategic conversation that's beneficial to both parties. So when you think about that, the sales call really is a conversation. The more conversational it is, the easier it is to develop trust, the easier it is to develop the ability to ask those high-impact questions. So the more the prospect views the conversation that you're carrying as worthwhile, the more likely you're going to get honest answers to the qualifying question. This sort of art of strategic conversation is just that. It is truly an artful thing. It can take a long time for a salesperson to learn how to do that. An important thing is to identify sales managers in your organization that know how to coach a salesperson to have those kinds of conversations. Because all too often, we'll give a salesperson a list of 20 qualifying questions they need to ask. And invariably, an inexperienced salesperson is going to be talking to a prospect either over the phone or in person, and they're going to start firing those questions away at that prospect. And ultimately, it turns into an interrogation. And usually, a prospect's guard is going to go up. Their willingness to answer those questions tends to go down. So one of the techniques is sort of framing those questions in the art of a conversation. So it's kind of like if I was going to ask a question along the lines of, so given the fact that you're trying to achieve X, Y, and Z, what's the impact if you don't hit that particular goal? So you're kind of, rather than just going, what happens if you don't hit your goal? You're framing that out a little bit and adding some extra information around it so that you're genuinely interested and curious about what they're trying to accomplish. So again, I'll take the approach of, so you've already talked about you're trying to do X, Y, and Z and moving your organization forward. I understand that these two things are dependencies. So given that, what happens if that goal isn't reached? Now you're getting some implications, you're getting underneath urgency, things along those lines. So it's really an important thing to teach salespeople is how to have that conversation around the art of asking questions.
SalesCrunch. Learn more, earn more.